Verse 203. And remember Allah during numbered days. Then whoever hastens in 2 days, there is no sin upon him, and whoever delays, there is no sin upon him, for him who fears Allah. And fear Allah, and know that unto him you will be gathered. Explanation. 1. Remembrance during Hajj. The specific numbered days refer to the days of Tashriq, 11th, 12th, and 13th of Dhul Hijjah, during which pilgrims are instructed to continue remembering Allah. 2. Flexibility in departure. Pilgrims are allowed to leave after 2 days or stay for the 3rd day, reflecting Islam's practicality and accommodation of individual circumstances. 3. Taqwa as a guiding principle. The phrase, for him who fears Allah, underscores that the ultimate goal of all acts of worship, including Hajj, is cultivating taqwa, God consciousness. 4. Accountability in the hereafter. The verse reminds believers of their eventual return to Allah, encouraging mindfulness and sincerity in their actions. Verse 204. And of the people is he whose speech pleases you in worldly life, and he calls Allah to witness as to what is in his heart, yet he is the fiercest of opponents. 1. Characteristics of hypocrites. This verse describes hypocrites who use charming speech to deceive others while harboring enmity in their hearts. This verse is linked to historical figures who outwardly claimed piety but worked against Islam, particularly during the Prophet's time. 2. Deception through words. Hypocrites often invoke Allah to lend credibility to their falsehoods, a tactic condemned in Islamic teachings. 3. Opposition to truth. Despite their pleasant words, hypocrites are described as fierce opponents of truth, reflecting their internal contradiction. Verse 205. And when he goes away, he strives throughout the land to cause corruption therein and destroy crops and animals. And Allah does not like corruption. 1. Corruption by hypocrites. Hypocrites engage in actions that harm society and the environment, such as spreading discord, exploitation, or destruction. This ayah emphasizes the broader concept of fasad, corruption, which includes both moral and physical harm to the community. 2. Condemnation of oppression. Destroying resources like crops and animals is symbolic of the broader harms caused by corrupt individuals, including economic and ecological damage. 3. Divine displeasure. Allah's disapproval of corruption serves as a warning to believers to act justly and preserve harmony in society. Verse 206. And when it is said to him, fear Allah, pride in the sin takes hold of him. Sufficient for him is hell, and how wretched is the resting place. 1. Arrogance in sin. Hypocrites and wrongdoers are characterized by their refusal to accept guidance or admonition, often responding with arrogance. This pride stems from a hardened heart and distance from divine guidance. 2. Consequences of pride. The verse warns that such arrogance leads to hell, a fitting punishment for those who reject truth and persist in wrongdoing. 3. Taqwa as a remedy. The call to fear Allah highlights taqwa as the solution to arrogance and corruption, promoting humility and accountability. Verse 207. And of the people is he who sells himself, seeking the pleasure of Allah. And Allah is kind to servants. 1. Devotion to Allah. This verse contrasts the hypocrites by describing the sincere believers who dedicate their lives to Allah's pleasure. Scholars often cite examples like Imam Ali sleeping in the Prophet's bed during the Hijrah as a practical manifestation of this verse. A glance on the story of Imam Ali sleeping in the Prophet's bed during the Hijrah. Context of the event. In 622 CE, the leaders of Quraysh in Mecca, feeling increasingly threatened by the growing influence of Islam, plotted to assassinate the Prophet Muhammad. They planned a coordinated attack with representatives from each clan to strike him simultaneously, ensuring no single tribe could be blamed for his death. However, Allah revealed their plot to the Prophet through the angel Gabriel, and instructed him to leave Mecca secretly that very night for Medina. To ensure the plan's success and to mislead the Quraysh, someone needed to stay behind and sleep in the Prophet's bed, giving the impression that he was still there. Imam Ali's sacrifice. The Prophet confided in his cousin and closest companion, Imam Ali, about the danger and the divine command to migrate. Without hesitation, Imam Ali volunteered to sleep in the Prophet's bed, knowing full well that he could be attacked and killed by the Quraysh assassins. Imam Ali's act of self-sacrifice was extraordinary because 1. He prioritized the safety of the Prophet and the mission of Islam over his own life. 2. His unwavering trust in Allah's protection demonstrated his deep faith. The night of Hijra. On the designated night, Imam Ali lay in the Prophet's bed, covered with his green cloak to resemble him. Meanwhile, the Prophet left Mecca undetected. The Quraysh surrounded the house, believing the Prophet was inside. In the morning, when they stormed in and found Imam Ali instead, they were furious but could do nothing to him as the mission of the Prophet had already succeeded. Quranic reference. This act of selflessness is believed to be referenced in the Quran in the verse, "And among the people is he who sells himself, seeking the pleasure of Allah. And Allah is kind to servants." Many Islamic scholars interpret this verse as a direct reference to Imam Ali's willingness to sacrifice himself for the sake of Allah and his messenger. Aftermath. When the Quraysh realized their plan had failed, they were enraged. Meanwhile, Imam Ali stayed in Mecca for a few more days to fulfill critical tasks assigned by the Prophet, such as returning entrusted belongings to their rightful owners, and facilitate the migration of the Prophet's family members and other Muslims to Medina. After completing these duties, Imam Ali made his own perilous journey to Medina, where he reunited with the Prophet. Significance of the event. The story of Imam Ali sleeping in the Prophet's bed is a testament to his courage and loyalty. It also underscores his vital role in the early days of Islam, not only as the Prophet's cousin but also as a staunch protector of the faith. This event is celebrated by Muslims as a profound example of devotion, self-sacrifice, and unwavering trust in Allah. 2. Selflessness in worship. Selling oneself for Allah symbolizes total submission and willingness to sacrifice personal comfort or safety for divine approval. 3. Allah's kindness. Allah's kindness is reflected in His guidance and support for those who sincerely seek Him. Verse 208. O you who have believed, enter into Islam completely and do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Indeed, he is to you a clear enemy. Explanation. 1. Comprehensive submission. Believers are instructed to embrace Islam fully, submitting to all its teachings without selective adherence. Partial obedience or following personal desires undermines the essence of true faith. 2. Avoiding satanic influence. The verse warns against following Satan's footsteps, which lead to disobedience and moral decline. 3. Satan as an open enemy. Satan's enmity is emphasized to encourage believers to remain steadfast and rely on divine guidance. Verse 209. But if you deviate after clear proofs have come to you, then know that Allah is exalted in might and wise. Explanation. 1. Consequences of deviation. Turning away from the truth after receiving clear guidance is a grave offense, reflecting deliberate rejection of Allah's signs. This is connected to the responsibility of recognizing and following divine proof, such as the teachings of the Prophet and the Imams. 2. Allah's might and wisdom. The verse reassures believers that Allah's might ensures justice, while His wisdom guarantees the fairness of His decrees. Verse 210. Do they await but that Allah should come to them in covers of clouds and the angels, and the matter is decided? And to Allah matters are returned. Explanation. 1. Warning against delayed repentance. This verse addresses those who delay belief and obedience, waiting for divine signs or punishment to compel them. Such attitudes reflect arrogance and lack of sincerity. 2. Final judgment. The imagery of Allah coming with clouds and angels signifies the day of judgment when all matters will be settled. It is very important to prepare for this day through faith and righteous deeds. 3. Ultimate return to Allah. All actions and decisions ultimately return to Allah, who will judge with justice and wisdom. Key themes. 1. Hypocrisy versus sincerity. The contrast between hypocrites and true believers highlights the importance of sincerity in faith and actions. 2. Dhikr and taqwa. Remembrance of Allah and fear of Him are recurring themes, emphasizing their role in guiding believers toward righteousness. 3. Corruption and its consequences. Corruption is condemned as a destructive force, with divine punishment awaiting those who persist in it. 4. Preparation for the hereafter. Believers are reminded of their ultimate accountability to Allah, encouraging a focus on eternal success over worldly gains.